What's going on YouTube? This is Metal Complex. Today, I'd like to do what I consider to be a very special blade. Uh, you guys taking a look at this. Some of you will know, some of you don't know what this is, but it's actually been around for a long time. This is a Kershaw Blur, as you can guess, made by Kershaw, Kai USA. This is the S30V version of it. You can see it up there, 1670. I imagine that's the model number, and then S30V. S30V is a premium steel. It's been around for a long time. As I understand it, developed by Chris Reeve. It is a very well-balanced steel. And by well-balanced, I mean good edge retention, a good corrosion resistance, reasonable toughness, reasonable abrasion resistance. This particular model is stone washed. So this knife, I actually got this for my wife. A long time ago, before we were married, I started jammering on about pocket knives and blah, blah, blah. And I could tell she was just being nice about it. And so I got all, motivated after months of talking about it. And I was like, I'm going to get her one. And I kept telling her, I was like, you need to carry some type of utility blade with you. Everybody does. And so I wanted to get something that didn't break the bank, and something that was functional. And so, in my last video, I talked about how my first knife purchase was actually the less expensive version of a Kershaw Blur. And I don't know what steel they use. I think it's like 8CR13 MOV, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the equivalent to American. I think that's the Chinese equivalent to American 440C, which is, decent steel. But in any case, I liked that knife, and I got lucky I picked that one for aesthetic purposes only, just because it was black and cool. But it actually ended up being a great knife, and I think a lot of people really enjoy this knife. So anyways, I picked this up then. This was 4 years ago for about 95 bucks. I believe these are 75 bucks right now. And I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. If I'm ever wrong about anything, feel free to correct me in the comments. I don't get upset about stuff like that. I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the world, and I definitely don't know everything about knives. But I want to say these are 75 bucks right now. And we're talking 6061 T6 aluminum handles with this this feels like track texturing. And I think it's called Track Tech. Kershaw calls it Track Tech anyway. This is an assisted opening knife with a recurved drop point blade in S30V and that's stonewashed. This is a good looking knife. Great looking knife. And I want to say the blade is about 3.25 inches long with a 4.5 inch handle. We're talking about anywhere between 7.75 inches to 8 inches overall, and about it's got to be 4 ounces, something like that. This is an awesome EDC package. I'm going to go as far as to say this is the best knife that exists under $100. I mean, under $80 now. I mean, now that it's 70 bucks. But whenever somebody says, hey, I want to buy a folding knife and I don't want to spend a ton of money, I want to spend less than 100 bucks, I don't even think about it. The Kershaw Blur, right? Now, a lot of people see this assisted opening feature and they roll their eyes. I don't need an assisted opening knife. Right? Because really, if you didn't know what this was, and I didn't tell you that it was assisted, we've all seen guys on YouTube flip manual knives that quickly. You can flip a regular knife just as fast as you can flip an assisted knife, right? But here's why I like this one. See the shape of the thumb studs? Where you go to deploy the knife is right here. Your thumb falls into place there because this is slanted, and then there's jimping on it, which means, literally the most minimal effort you could possibly imagine to deploy a knife from pocket to hand to deployment is how this is set up. Right here. Perfect. Knife should come out of your pocket, be deployed easily, used, then put away. Right? Perfect. I'm not a huge fan of recurves because they're difficult to sharpen, I'm not a professional sharpener. They're difficult to touch up, right? But this blade is 4 years old. It bangs around in her purse, and she probably uses it 3 times a week, 4 times a week for cutting boxes. It's got a reasonable edge on it. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good for 4 years. I'm really impressed with that. This is a liner lock knife. This is exactly where it engaged, you know, give or take the smallest possible unit of measure, you know, because I can't remember exactly. I want to say it was right around 50% when I bought it, and it's still in that same place. Let me make a case for liner lock knives, okay? Versus my XM18, right? This is a titanium frame lock, and it locks up nice and early, and that's great. Titanium on steel, well, titanium will wear on steel, which is why you see knives with, by the way, these are about the same size. These are really close. This is a little bit bigger, a little bit longer blade. They're about the same size. So, titanium on steel. Titanium rubbing against steel over and over again will eventually wear in, because titanium is actually softer than steel, right? So that's, they carbonize these, but steel on steel, the reason you see steel lock bar inserts is because, you know, steel on steel, especially if it's hardened steel versus a hardened steel blade tang, won't wear in as fast. So the life of the lock bar is extended. This liner's already steel, right? And the total engagement is really only a little bit less than what my frame lock's engaging at. You know, and as this frame lock breaks in, there'll be more and more engagement. But this hasn't moved in 4 years. Plus, here's my hammer drop argument on why I really, really like liner lock knives that are steel. The philosophy, or the design philosophy behind this XM18 is hard use, right? Hard use. And I believe it. If you're going to use this thing hard, what I always imagine is this movement here against wood, a hammer grip, right? As you squeeze this, you will squeeze in on that lock bar. It'll push it further in. Now, is it still functional if the lock bar gets pushed further in? Yeah, definitely. But it does decrease the total life of the lock bar. It pushes it further in. This liner's housed inside. It's like a cartridge liner. And the actual liner lock is part of that cartridge liner, and it's set into these aluminum handles. Go ahead and squeeze this thing as hard as you want. You're not going to push that lock bar further into the blade, into the blade tang, and you're not going to accidentally disengage it unless you're whacking on the spine, which I've never messed with because that doesn't make any sense to me. So that's awesome. You really can use this. It's a thinner blade, premium steel. It's got a recurve, which actually is functional, right? If you're gonna start your cut here and pull, you're gonna pull the material into the belly, which is great. Super easy deployment from here. Pocket clip's all right. I don't know why she prefers it this way. She doesn't actually wear it in her pocket. I'd put it down here, but it does have that little divot that I like. If you're gonna pull it out of your pocket, right? Your thumb goes into the pants right here. You grabs the knife from this side. This finger digs in right here. You can pull it out. I love that. I think that's an awesome clip design. I don't care if it's deep carry or not. 6061 T6 aluminum that's been hard coat anodized black. This is pretty tough. I mean, she's got a couple of marks here and there, but really, jeez, actually, this thing is super clean. Like I said, I mean, she pulls it out and uses it for cardboard, but so this may not be the best example for how well this anodization holds up, but it is a 4-year-old knife and it does get used. Even if you do get scratches on it, it's still going to look good. That stuff's tough. Last point, I 100% believe in this. Open body construction, pillar construction. Why? Because you can blow it out, you can clean it out. It's super easy, right? Plus, this particular pillar construction, I'm going to give some bonus points here because the screws, unlike Benchmade, you know, these are little tiny Torx heads, right? And you'd think there'd be more Torx heads on the other side. And this bothers some people, but it doesn't bother me. It tells me that those screws go all the way through the standoffs, those little black things right there, and then they screw into the other side, right? I imagine there's some type of Loctite in there holding them in place, but it's not one short screw on the top, one short screw on the bottom, so on and so forth down the body, which bothers me because I have had assisted opening Benchmade knives. In fact, that barrage that I talked about in the last video, where I'd fire it open and eventually one of these would pop out. That drove me crazy. Not on the Blur. If you're looking for a sub $100 knife, the Kershaw Blur is the best thing out there, in my opinion. Not everybody's going to agree with me, and that's fine. If you agree with me, comment. You know, let's talk about it. If you don't agree with me, comment. I'd like to talk about that too. If you've got a knife that you think is better than a Kershaw Blur, and you paid less than $100 for it, let's hear about it. Either way, if you enjoyed the video, please like, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I am going to try and put out videos every single day. I didn't get one out yesterday because the video was too long, and YouTube said I had to shorten it up, and I watched it again, and I thought, you know what, that knife's better saved for a later date anyway. So I've got some cool stuff coming. Check in with me every day and see what I've got. Have a great day, guys.